Welcome, everybody. My name is Neil DeRoziers. I'm with Mazak Corporation out of Florence, Kentucky. I've been with Mazak for going on 30 years now, if you can believe it. I know I don't look a day over 22, but I've been with almost 30 years now. My background is manufacturing. I'm a machinist at heart. I got Microsoft certified, and about 10 years ago, I got involved in what's known now as the MTConnect Institute. I am Mazak's representative at the technical advisory group there. I am the chairperson for the machine tool work group, so I'm very much involved in one technology I'm going to explain today, which is MTConnect. About 5 or 6 years ago, after we got involved in it, somebody asked us if we were using MTConnect in our own factory. And it kind of called us out to admit the fact that, hey, wow, we're not doing our own thing, right? So we decided to implement what we now call our iSmart factory in Florence, Kentucky. So it's where we make Mazak machines with Mazak machines. So in doing this, what we've done is we're now creating what we call our RoadMap, and that's a word that gets, I think, used quite a bit too much, but we're creating this roadmap for the Internet of Things, or the industrial Internet of Things. And we bring our customers in and we help explain how to get started in connectivity and what you can do with data from the factory floor. We now offer a 2-day MTConnect boot camp, which is really transitioning into an IoT boot camp, because now we talked about security and things like that. So in the last few years, we've been implementing that, but now also security has become a really big issue, as you know, in factories with hacking of robots and factory floors and such, ransomware. And it's really changed some of the direction that we've taken with solving problems on the factory floor. So through a collaboration with Cisco, we've also addressed that issue. So what I want to share with you today is some of the things that we've learned along this road, some of the things that we think are ironclad in getting started and getting connected, because everybody, I think, understands what you want to do once you get the data into the enterprise. People want to do analytics. They want to do utilization calculations, overall equipment effectiveness. Everybody hears those terms and they understand it. They say, I want to begin. They don't know how to get started. This is what we've done, and this is what I want to share with you. So I sit down with a lot of customers, and a lot of the engineering and the IT departments, they're over there arguing, we got to think outside the box, got to think outside the box. And it's so funny because this is not I didn't come up with this, but somebody said, you know what, don't think outside the box, just get a whole new box. And it really made sense to me when I started applying that logic, and that is, there's too many people today that use existing things that existing paradigms, if you will, and the same rules they always have, and trying to reach IoT and Industry 4.0. And they're failing because they're using those old paradigms. So what we've done is we took a different approach. And here's what customers are doing, is they're saying, we have to do Industry 4.0 or IoT, everybody else is doing it, we're going to get left behind if we don't do it. So we got to get started. Give me a budget, give me a 5-year or 10-year plan of what this is going to look like, and management's going to approve it. And the engineers just go, we have no idea where this is going. We know it's going to change. It's going to be crazy. How do we come up with a budget and a plan when we know it's probably going to change and it's not going to match? So what we've done is we sat down and we said, let's define use cases. Rather than solving one problem like security or data or what do I want to do with the data, let's just define what manufacturing use cases we have on the factory floor now, come up with a data flow and a security solution to address all of those issues and allow all the data to go upstairs. And then at that point, they can do whatever they want. If you've agreed already that the information from the factory floor is now mission critical to IoT or Industry 4.0, then you've already accepted the fact that the equipment on the factory floor has to get connected. You can't get the data without it. You can't do it manually anymore because it's not going to be real time. If you accept that, and your enterprise people, all your CEOs accept that, and they tell the IT department that, now they have to come up with a solution. Forget about the arguments about why you don't want to connect the factory. Come up with a solution to address these use cases and give us the data. In doing this scenario, we identified some use cases. We've come up with 2 constants in getting connected and doing this the right way. One is you have to connect the equipment, right? And we've defined how to do it securely, and we'll talk about the Mazak Smart Box in a few minutes. The second thing is protocol choice. Over the years of being involved with the MTConnect Institute, there's one thing that we've learned and we know of and that we're really proud of is the fact that MTConnect is the only data model for manufacturing out there today. So we have a dictionary for English, Spanish, Japanese, French, whatever, and we now have a dictionary for manufacturing terms. Why is this important? because if I'm monitoring 20 different types of machine tools, right? I'd love to think that you all have Mazak machines and that's all you have, right? But I know you don't. But you have all these different types of machines on your factory floor, and all the data is coming from them. Wouldn't it be great if they were all in the same exact format? Wouldn't it be great if I look at that one, it says execution state, says feed hold, that every single one of them that's in feed hold says feed hold. It doesn't say stopped or says something obscure, right? They all say the same thing and it means the same thing across the board. So now you have semantics. I can take data from any piece of equipment across the factory floor and do data analytics or data mining. And 70% of your work for doing analytics is already done for you, and that is normalization of the data. I don't have to compare all of these terms being used, try and standardize them to be able to do the data mining. Everything has a UTC timestamp on it, which means every machine tool or every device in your factories anywhere in the world uses the same clock, Zulu time or Greenwich Mean Time. They're all using universal time coordinate. So I have multiple equipment in different factories. They're all using the same dictionary. If I have one piece of software that can monitor or consume MTConnect data, that piece of software can monitor any device that speaks MTConnect anywhere in the world, and it can monitor it and see the data and understand what every single data tag is. That's very, very powerful. The way it works is this way. We have what we call an agent, and this is nothing more than a website or a web service. I can use a browser to test it, and I can say HTTP, and I go to the machine, and I get data back. And it comes back in a standard format called XML, or extensible markup language. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. The OEMs, like Mazak and all the other machine tool builders, even some third-party providers, create what's called an adapter. This adapter is what gets the proprietary information out of the machine tool or the device and sends it into the agent. All it is a message pump. It pushes data in there. The agent maintains it in a buffer, and it says who wants the data, okay? So if it's HTTP, it's no different than if you go to Google, right? You got a guy here in the front, he goes to google.com and he gets his information. He doesn't know or care that there might be 10,000 other people hitting Google at the same exact time. As long as everybody gets their data, nobody cares. MTConnect works the same way. And that's powerful because I can have a simple dashboard over here that shows me machine status. It's getting data from all the machines. I can have a tool management system in the tool room, and all it's doing is querying the machines just for tooling information, and it's sharing the data and showing them what they want. I could have a maintenance dashboard. I could have a historian that's doing a data collection behind the scenes and grabbing all of that data and putting it in a database if I want, or pushing it to the cloud. If I hit a machine directly, it looks like this. It's just raw data, XML data, structured text. I wouldn't want to look at it like that, but it's a cool way to see it in a browser, and I test my machines and I can see the data. If I read it, it actually makes sense. It'll say controller mode, automatic. Execution state, it's active, meaning it's in cycle. Rotary velocity override. What's the operator done with the spindle speed? Has he overrode the spindle speed? Path feed rate override, has he overrode that? Spindle temperatures, vibration, any type of sensor you want to add, you can add and configure it, and you can get that data out. Adapters can be hardware or software. Anytime I talk adapters, customers immediately assume it's a piece of hardware, a black box, and it's not. In the case of all of our Windows-based controllers, an adapter is a piece of software. A piece of Windows software, I install it. It allows that data to come out and push data into the agent. My machine is now MTConnect compliant. But in the case of legacy equipment, I have 64 machines in Kentucky that's connected, and they all look on a dashboard as to be all brand new machines. They don't look any different. They all speak MTConnect. But 20 of them are 30-year-old grinders and press brakes that have one signal coming out of them, and you don't realize it, but they step on the pedal and it says, hey, he's using the machine, he's in cycle. But it's real simplistic like that, and I can get utilization of all of our manual equipment. MTConnect is read-only. We like that as an OEM because we don't have to worry about somebody pushing data and forcing changes or parameter servo changes in the machine and making the machine crash. There's a lot of argument over whether or not it should be read-write, because there's a lot of other protocols that allow read-write. We don't like that because it's not that secure. If you have a read-only protocol, that means somebody can't hack you and push data in the machine. That's pretty cool. But there is the idea of a read-read interface. And I'll admit, I was a naysayer in the beginning, but we were the first people to do it, Mazak and LNS, to do a bar feeder interface. And now there's a robot interface where it's read-read, and the machine reads the robot reads the machine, and they have an interface, and they can handshake, and it works fantastic. So what we're doing in Kentucky, and this is what I like to call, the pure MTConnect, is that if you have a layer of abstraction above your entire factory where it's one data model, I don't mean protocol, I mean data model, a dictionary that defines all the terms of all the data that comes off the factory floor. Any system that you have upstairs is plug and play. If they can consume MTConnect, they use it, they do utilization or OEE, whatever it is. But let's say in a year from now, that company is no longer innovating, right? And they're not keeping up with how fast you want to move. You want new features, and maybe they're going out of business and they don't want to add that. So you go out and buy somebody else's software, you put it in place, you get it up and running at the same time, and then you shut the other one off and everything continues. That's really powerful from an end user standpoint, okay? Having that layer of abstraction above those machines, that means that I can have dashboards of any kind from any third party or myself, and I can implement them all simultaneously and get data from anywhere. So today when I sit with customers, these are the top 5 things that I deal with that they're complaining about or that they're concerned with, and some of these might hit home for you. Number 1, today the only people they're getting advice from is the software companies. And these software companies are looking to sell you software and maybe hardware, black boxes, okay, that are very proprietary, so you got to be careful. Viruses on the machines. You got Windows 95, Windows 2000, you got XP, you got systems that are outdated as far as Microsoft is concerned, right? But they're going to be around for another 20 years. You know that because they're machine tools and the iron doesn't die and the machines are still being utilized. We got hacking and ransomware. Right now, factory floors are being hacked, and a lot of people are talking about ransomware happening on the factory floor. I hear about it because I'm teaching some of these classes, and somebody always says, yeah, it happened to us. Why is that happening all of a sudden? You say, well, because we're getting connected and the machines are now on the internet. Not so much. Think about ransomware at home. If somebody hacks your computer at home, how much money do you think they could really negotiate out of you, right? Maybe 500 bucks, maybe not even that much to get the computer unlocked and you get your data back. What about a machine tool on a factory floor? 1 hour's worth of downtime probably equates to $100,000 or more. 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, that could be a lot of money. So they're going, wow, I can hack the factory right now just as easy almost as somebody's home, and I can get 100 times more pieces, or 100 times more money. It's becoming more lucrative, word's getting out, and everybody's pointing to factories now. So it's becoming a target. Intellectual property. If you are a first-tier supplier for some of these large aerospace companies or larger companies, they're now looking at you as a way of their data or their intellectual property being lost. So they manufacturing it in-house, they're keeping control of things. But if they take that data and they send it to you, it's almost like that data is now out in the wild, right? They have no idea what you're doing with it, and they're concerned about losing that information or you getting hacked at your facility and losing the data. If you're doing any work for the Department of Defense or the DoD, DFARS compliance is almost like ISO 9000. There's rules and regulations to be compliant with ISO 9000. DFARS is about controlling unclassified technical information on the factory floor. So cutting programs, tooling information, anything that it would take to process apart and make this proprietary thing, whatever it is, that's now they're trying to get control of that and make sure that you're under control and you're making sure that data is not getting out. So today I see it, and we'll say yesterday I see it like this. We got machines connected, and this is the way we did our factory, I'll admit. We got them all connected to the network. And there's 3 different types of customers. One is a customer that just wants to do a simple dashboard. They don't want to save the data. They want to show status and let the operators say, why is your machine down? And the supervisor's questioning it. The second one is you go buy a software like some of the other people in here, and you want to do utilization and OEE. They're collecting the data, storing it in a database. You get reports, you get trending, you get all kinds of information. The third type is usually the larger companies where they already have their enterprise resource planning software. They already have their big databases, and they say, how do I get that data from the factory into our system? And they just want to have a data collector. They want to get that data there. So today, and we're going to come back to that slide. Today, the way security is set up, they take a layered approach. And if you have any IT people in here, you'll understand what this is you have a machine, and it might be a little robot cell or something that's on its own network. There's a network above that, might be the shop, and then you have the plant, and then you have the office, and so on. And at every level, there's some means of a firewall, right? You're protecting every layer. And the whole goal to that is if they penetrate one layer and they hack into that, then it's going to be more difficult and more difficult to hack them all to eventually reach a machine. But in the background here, a lot of these automated cells, the OEMs will put some sort of cellular chip, a means of being able to remote in and diagnose a problem for you. And in today's standard, what I'm going to show you today, that's old. I really believe that's going to go away. And the reason why is IT is going to tell you that's a backdoor into our network, and we don't want that on our network. So to get data out of a machine tool, what we've said is you have to make that device, whatever it is, whether it's a machine, a paint booth, a grinder, you have to make it a first-class citizen on your network. Your IT department is going to have a real problem with that because you're basically telling them, I want to hook that Windows 95 computer up to the network. Is that okay? And they're just going to say, yeah, right. You're joking, right? So today, the IT department says, hold up, no way. We're going to give the shop floor their own network, and you guys do whatever you want out there. Here's the line between the office and the factory, right? And they put their hand up right there and they say, you can do whatever you want on the factory, but you're not connecting to anything in the office. And that's pretty much true today. Rightfully so. There's too many machines out here that are Windows 95 and Windows 2000. There's PLCs. There's stuff that IT department doesn't understand, they can't control, so they don't want it connected. So now we kind of reached a real problem here, right? We're saying we have to connect that information to get the data. We're saying the data is mission critical to moving towards Industry 4.0 and IoT. How do we solve that? So we got introduced to Cisco, and we defined probably 10 or 20 use cases. We narrowed it down to a summary of these items here. We said, look, we have to be able to solve this problem. We need to isolate the machines. We need to connect it to the network. The data has to flow freely from here to the office so I can do all of these crazy analytics and big data, whatever I want to do. How do I do that? And they came up with a solution. They have industrial networking gear. They have what they call managed switches or layer 3 managed switches that the IT department has full control over. They said we can network it, we can isolate the machine on its own little network, and everything will be perfect and it's secure. What's the point? If there's no data flowing and I can't get the data out, we're kind of same thing as before. So what we did is Cisco went and put inside this layer 3 managed switch a Linux PC, and we're running MTConnect in there, those MTConnect agents I mentioned. So the MTConnect agents are reading the data from the secure network that the machine is on, and it's allowing the data to be read on the northbound side, and it's secure. They have full control over that. We protect the network from the machine by isolating the machine. We protect viruses or ransomware from being propagated across the equipment by isolating the machine. So if somebody walks in with a USB stick and puts it in the machine and infects it, it doesn't propagate across all of the equipment. So we're narrowing that issue down. You can put multiple machines behind there. If you have a cell, that's fine. But if one of those machines gets sick, it's likely the others are going to get sick. So you got to kind of weigh out what the risk is for that. But we're empowering the things that we know about today. These are all the things that I know I can do today that people have asked me they want to do. You may be aware of all of those. But there's a big question mark over here. In a year from now, 5 years from now, what new technology is going to come out? What new enterprise system software that some of the big software companies are going to offer? I don't know. But the roadmap going down for IoT is going to change. And at Mazak, we've accepted the fact that if something does change, we can back up and go like this and take a different fork in the road. And the only way we can empower that is by having an open system that's nothing proprietary in here that allows you to grow. We want you to be able to do all the use cases today and all the use cases in the future. So it has to be future-proof, it has to be completely open so that you can do whatever you want in there. So this space in that box is a DIN rail in there where you can mount industrial equipment. If you want to get an industrial PC and put it in there, and you want to do high-speed data analytics on high-frequency data, we've done it. You can do it as well. So we've done some pretty cool stuff. The one thing that's really powerful is because I have MTConnect running out there, the way we do it is we use what we call microservices. So if you're an IT guy, you understand, or you've heard of the cloud, right? What makes Microsoft Azure so powerful? What makes Amazon Web Services so powerful? It's all microservices. So which means if I have a service up there that does a particular function and it gets overloaded, I start up another one just like it, and it balances and it load balances, and I can put as many apps up there as I want, and as I need more, I can grow. I can do the same thing here. Probably won't have to scale that much that way, but what if I want other types of apps? We're doing things such as secure file transfer. So now imagine your engineer sitting in the programming department and he has this real proprietary program or CAD model and he wants to download it to the machine. He opens up his browser, he hits this HTTPS, just like you do in your banking, right? He's doing a secure connection to the box. He grabs the file, he downloads it, and drops it right onto the machine, encrypted. So now there's no more USB stick going out to the machine tool. What if you want to connect to your first-tier supplier? The best way of doing anything secure, connecting to a company, is through a VPN. And it's really the only way they allow. And the reason why is that IT knows when you're connected. They've given you an account. They audit you. They know where you go on the network. They know everything you've done. They're recording everything you do. So that's the only way they let you connect. So now you connect to your first-tier supplier with a VPN connection, and you connect to the smart box right by the machine, and you download securely your CAD model right onto the machine, or your cutting program right to the machine. I need 20 of those parts. They make 20 of those parts. When you're done, you delete it. So what we're doing is we're starting to limit the possibilities of your intellectual property being taken away or being lost on a USB stick somewhere. It's now going securely, one direction from source to destination. You now have provenance. So connecting either remotely by Mazak or another engineering department. Today, we used to connect through the back door, right? Come in through a cell connection or something like that and do remote diagnostics. Tomorrow, we're going to be connecting through VPN. And you say, whoa, 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 wait a minute. I don't want Mazak connecting to my network. The difference here is that I have a layer 3 managed switch out here, which means your IT department, they create a secure connection from the IT room, a tunnel, right to the box, which means when I connect, the only thing I can see is what's behind the box. I can't go out to the network. They've isolated me right there. That's powerful. So what about managing all of these devices? Think about if you go out and buy somebody's little black boxes and you start implementing them and you're connecting and you're doing sensors or whatever. That guy who hooked up 1,000 of those things in all your buildings leaves. Next guy comes up and he's like, I know the firmware of those things are all out of date and I got to update them. Where are they? Does anybody have a map? Do we know where they are? Okay. You have a scalability issue. You can't manage that many devices. With the smart box, because it's Cisco gear, one guy in the IT room can manage 140,000 devices or something with one dashboard. And he goes in there and he says, show me all the ones that are out of date, that don't have firmware. Okay, schedule an update on all of this department tomorrow at night. Okay, and he can manage all that. The other thing he can do is he can manage all of the applications that are running on there. So you get a new smart box, you put it in there, and you say, hey, I want to drop the MTConnect app on there, and I want to drop the Secure File Transfer app, and now boom, I'm deployed, I'm up and running, and the system's now dropping. The guys are able to push files out to the machines. So if I take that scenario that we had before, I had the smart box there. All I've done was made a secure connection to my equipment and gave you a launch platform to everything you wanted to do before. I'm not telling you to change your ideas. I'm not telling you to change what you want to do with the data. What I'm saying is don't forget that security layer. Don't forget to have the ability to grow, and don't make a mistake of buying something proprietary where you're going to make a regret. You're going to have a regret in another year from now when you want to do something new or some new technology comes around and you can't apply it. So you want to make sure you have the flexibility to drop something in there and have the capability to move forward. You also see this. That's coming. I threw that on there as a nugget for you. That's coming soon. And we're talking about things, services that Mazak can provide to you as an OEM, where we can do remote preemptive diagnostics of your equipment, monitor it, tell you when your machines are going to be, your ball screw or your spindle's going to fail, things like that. A lot of cool stuff that's coming. If you do it right and you do it secure, your IT department's going to give you that stamp of approval. Why? They have full control over security. The box is basically theirs. They sit there and they can manage it. Anybody that's a high level in security will tell you that if anything flows through that box and I have the right softwares and options enabled, I can do what they call deep packet inspection. I can watch for worms and all kinds of stuff. I can look for any abnormal data that's flowing through there, and I can shut off ports automatically. It's not always so much about knowing if I've been hacked. If somebody says, oh, we got a virus, wouldn't it be great to just push a button and it would all just go away? It's kind of like that with the box, is that they can have red flags that go up immediately and it can shut the ports down and then tell you that they shut the port down, right? You can set up a lot of really powerful features for the system. But it will enable all the things that I want to do today and likely all the things that I want to do in the future, because it's a standard equipment. It's a high-level managed piece of equipment. If you don't do that and you buy something very simplistic, I'm not telling you that it's not going to work. I'm not telling you that it's not going to be secure. What I am telling you is if you look at it from a use case standpoint, you're going to solve 1 or 2 use cases, and that's all you're ever going to do. And if you have to go back later and do it, you're going to spend more money by replacing it and buying new equipment or upgrading it, one of the two. We have an MTConnect boot camp, a 2-day boot camp in Kentucky, October 17th and 18th, where we go from I know nothing about MTConnect all the way up through security, sensor data, how to hook up sensors, how to use MTConnect, best case scenarios, best practices. We tour our factory. You get to see it all being used. Consider security now. Don't go forward and just blindly connect machines because in the last 6 months, I think it's got exponentially more risky to hook anything up to your network, right? You got to be careful about what you're doing. At this time, I will take questions. Any questions?
Anyone have a question?
It was so good.
Thank you. So based on what you're giving us, the roadmap, obviously all these collects real-time data about the product,
Yep.
try to prevent quality defects before they happen, etc. What about the facilities, the whatever, electrical equipment, compressed air, or all that infrastructure that is part of the process, not part of the finished product, but does that need to be also connected as well somehow?
Yeah, I do. In other words, it's the crawl, walk, run scenario, right? What do you want to get started with? What's most important to you? And you start hooking up equipment and maybe you just do simple utilization. But at some point, your problem in your factory, your headache might be that compressor, right? You might have an air problem. And machines are going down not because the operator's not doing his job or there's something that's happening wrong with the process or the material. So maybe you have a compressor problem. And you're going to say, okay, the next project we're going to have is hooking up those compressors. And we're going to put sensors on them. We're going to get that data out. And we're going to put some sort of logic behind that if pressure starts going down, somebody's getting an email and things like that. So there's nothing in the factory that you can't monitor. Anything that you want to monitor, you can monitor. I have things in our factory that I'm not monitoring yet that I want to, and that is, for example, we have tons of welding booths, and we have these tanks, all the gases that they use for welding. I want to monitor on there. I know they're already ordering automatically and new tanks are coming, but how much are we using? Why isn't that data being shared with everything else that's happening in the factory? Why can't I do big analytics, right? Big data analytics on that data. I want that information. So yeah, anything you want to hook up to, you can. If it's not a headache now, it might not be your most important thing to do, but sure.
Thank you.
There's a question back there too. Either one.
All right, well,
Either one.
All right, we'll go back here real quick. There you go, sir. How do you tie this into EBITDA?
I'm sorry, excuse me?
How do you tie this right into your cost, like EBITDA? In other words, if you're doing a cost savings program, it doesn't have any value unless it's tied directly into EBITDA.
Right, so there's a presentation, Dave McPhail does a presentation on ROI, and he talks about all that, and he does a fantastic job explaining that. I'm not the business side of this, but I'll tell you this. One day I approached him, and there was actually somebody was going around saying that unless you're a big company, this isn't for you, monitoring isn't for you. So I heard that, and I immediately turned to Dave and I said, hey, have you done ROI for small job shops and stuff? And he's like, yeah, sure. Have you ever had a situation where it was negative, where it wasn't worth doing? And he said, absolutely not. And maybe it's not as big a value, but still, I think you can justify it just about anywhere you go. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Thank you. It's kind of similar to his question. So it's about where, like, IIoT has different application areas and connected products or within the factory itself.
Right.
But where do you think it mostly add value?
I would say utilization, just basic utilization. So when we started hooking up our machines, we were using Memex software, the Merlin system, and we implemented all that, and we were just doing the first tier, which was utilization. So we hooked up the machines in one department, we put the dashboards up, but we weren't doing any reporting yet. Okay, we weren't even looking at reports, but we had the dashboards up and immediately we're on to the next department. We're trying to get everything connected. And during that time, we figured, oh, let's let the guys get used to, the whole human nature part, right? Big brother watching. Let's let them get used to the system being in there. And they're looking at the screens. People are asking, why is your machine down? And they're going, oh, okay, something was wrong or this and that. And they start identifying all that low-hanging fruit. We found, after we came back and did reports, we found that from day one, to like maybe 4 months, we were getting 6% increased utilization in that department. Over 9 months, it ended up being 17%. Put a dollar value on 17% in our factory. We got like 60-something machines, okay? It's a lot. So utilization alone, I would think that's probably the first thing that you want to do. If you have equipment that operators, like machine tools producing.
Yeah, and this is like from direct monitoring, not even with analytics or machine learning?
Right, without even any analytics or machine learning. So here's an interesting thing, and I believe this, but I didn't talk about it much until I saw it from a customer, and that is diminishing returns, right? You get out the gate and you start doing just basic screens, and it doesn't cost you as much to get started, right? And that's where you get your biggest return. Look, we got 17%. It takes more time and energy and money and people doing the analytics and looking at the data and implementing, targeted improvements, and for 2% of improvement, right? So the percentage of improvement, it's a great goal to have. You want to keep moving towards OEE and lean, but in the beginning, it seems like you get the biggest bang for buck just by getting started.
Okay, just one last question,
sure.
Sorry. So what is the difference between this kind of utilization monitoring and what the factories have since the 80s?
Nothing, okay? I think really what's changed is it's gotten easier. Monitoring isn't new. In the 80s, we'd go around with a notepad and we'd write down all the clocks. Now the clock data and all that information is coming automatically. So now I think there's more of a market now for software. So there's more software companies that are coming out. But monitoring isn't new. It's just gotten much easier, especially with MTConnect. Sure. You're welcome. Anyone else?
Any other questions for Neil?
We do have a booth over here, the Mazak booth. We have our machines, and I'm standing here all day, every day. So if you have any further questions, I'm happy to talk to you too. Go ahead.
How do you tie in yield loss associated with your operations?
What kind of loss?
Yield loss. In other words, you're buying materials and then you're machining them. The yield loss associated with that has a certain value.
Right.
How do you monitor that and the logistics involved?
Now that's a process, and that's a systems control, right? That's software. That's features of software. Right. Well, the data is only supplying information to that. So if you have parts that have become scrap, just use scrap as an example, not even work in process, just scrap. At the end of the day, that has to get reported somehow, right? So you're looking at an operator portal now. That's not necessarily happening automatically, but tying into the system, the operators put in, I have 20 good parts, 2 bad parts, right? So there's your loss for material. Does that answer your question? It gets bigger than that, right? It's much more complex, but there's a lot of information that can't be collected automatically.
I mean, that's the tip of the iceberg, because when you talk about yield loss, you're not only talking about what's left over, you're talking about what's that cost associated with your raw material costs.
Dave, does that tie into your financial package? Yep. Yeah. So I think you really want to listen to Dave's presentation, and I think tomorrow it's on the schedule over there. He talks about it, the financial side of everything, and that's really, to do those calculations, I mean, that's a software package in itself. Sure. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.